Hey folks, Quill18 here, and it is once again time for LUDUM Dare, or Ludum Dare if you prefer. LUDUM Dare is a game jam, a game programming competition that happens in a very short period of time. Technically, LUDUM Dare, which used to happen 3 times a year, now happens twice a year, has 2 simultaneous sort of side-by-side competitions. There's the LUDUM Dare Jam, which is 72 hours long. You can have a team of people on it. You can use pre-existing assets like art, music, and whatever like that. However, I've always participated in the original and more hardcore version, which is the LUDUM Dare Compo, the competition, which is only 48 hours. You only have 2 days. You have to work alone. You can't use any pre-existing assets whatsoever. The only thing you can use that's pre-existing is like publicly available code libraries. Like you can use, say, Unity and the associated Unity stuff. Of code, the Unity code stuff, because it's accessible to everyone. But yeah, any art, music, anything like that's got to be made time of. What happens is on the Friday night, so a few hours after this is posted, a theme will be announced, and that's when programming starts. There is a list of, 20 or 25 possible themes. One will get picked by the participants of the tournament, and then everyone will start programming at the same time. I live stream the whole thing. I do want to say, if you're subscribed to both youtube.com/Quill18 and youtube.com/Quill18creates, you may see this video twice in your feed, because I'll be posting it to both. So it's not a duplicate upload if you're wondering, it's just that. And this is going to be my 22nd time participating in LUDUM Dare. A long time ago, we started with Paper Town. This is the very first, well, effectively the very first game I've ever made, this Paper Town. Also the first time I'd ever done anything in Unity whatsoever. There's no modeling of anything other than in Unity. They're all primitive shapes and everything like that. But I feel like this still, I'm still really proud of that. By the way, every LUDUM Dare, the announcement video that I do like this, tend to do a bit of a look through all of my past games, get some of that nostalgia and those ideas brewing. Fish Tank Commander over here, I think it was called, Fish Tank Commander, was not made in Unity. It's one of the few games that I've made that was not in Unity. This was actually made, it was a multiplayer turn-based strategy game that you could play on the web. It was made in Ruby on Rails, and it was pretty cool. You had different types of units you could spawn. The theme was Tiny World, so my idea was this whole thing was happening in a fish tank, therefore the pun Fish Tank Commander. And yeah, you had to take control of various castles, you'd get resources, and then you could start producing units, all of which had a variety of different abilities. And yeah, you could just do matchmaking on the website. It was kind of awesome. You could also, you could make your own maps too. So people could make their own maps to contribute to the pool of things. I was always really proud of that. Super proud of that. Pinballogy. Okay, so still fairly new to Unity, very, very rough kind of thing over here in terms of modeling, both in terms of learning Blender and whatnot. But I love pinball. I've always loved pinball. I've played pinball games since I was a kid. I own 2 pinball machines in my basement. I mean, they're both like pretty old and obsolete pinball machine, because a new pinball machine is like thousands of dollars. I did not pay anywhere close to that much for these things, until I guess you consider all the repairs, because one of them I got for free, but almost every part inside of it had to be replaced. But that's a fun project kind of thing. Anyway, but I've always loved pinball, so I wanted to make a pinball game. And one of the things is, in real life, pinball games, there's pinball games for everything. Every movie that's ever been made has a pinball game. Every sport, every activity has a pinball game themed for it. My pinball games that I've got, one of them is about poker. Blackjack. It's a blackjack game. And the other one is just a day at the fair, at the carnival, is all it is. Those are the themes of that. So the theme for that LUDUM Dare here was evolution. I'm like, I'm going to make an evolution-themed pinball game. It's pretty rough, but hey, I liked it. And we can only get better, right? There we go. Close that. Next after that is KittenZilla 3, The Return of Mecha KittenZilla. And also the first time that we've used like a number in our game to imply that it's part of a series, which it's definitely not. So here we're experimenting in first-person shooter type stuff, as well as massively destructible terrain. All of these buildings were made out of destructible terrain, so you could blow it up. Actually, your goal was to destroy Michael's Bay. Meanwhile, like tanks and things like that were trying to stop you from doing things. I actually really like this overhead. This is just an isometric view from inside the Unity editor, but like I put this down, I'm like, I should make a game that looks like that. I still haven't. One day, maybe. Shoot! Again, every time I do a LUDUM Dare, the games, I try to aim a little bit on the simpler side, but try to do one thing that's kind of interesting. Well, this theme was minimalism. What I did for this one is I made a minimalist multiplayer first-person shooter. With bots. Like, that's how crazy. I made in 48 hours, actually not even 48 hours, because we started this that night. We started an entirely different game. The next morning I woke up and I was like, that game sucks. And I started over completely from scratch. And I think that that second day, the Saturday, because it starts Friday night, so you have all of Saturday, and then you have, so you have some of Sunday night, all of Saturday, and then some of Sunday, depending on what time zone you're in, the way it works out. And I think the Saturday evening, I had to go out to a work, Christmas party, I think. So this whole thing, this first-person multiplayer shooter game with full AI bots and everything like that, here's the top view of that. Actually, this is what it looks like when you're dead. You get to, watch everyone else fight. I think up to 16 players, maybe 32 players could play simultaneously in here, was all done so effectively in well under, I think, 20 hours of programming time. And it was awesome! It was super duper fun. Oh, up to 16 players over there. I don't know, you couldn't run it now because I don't think the server stuff is set up for it. But, I mean, you can, of course, download all the source, because one of the things with the 48-hour compo is you required to upload the source code to your project. It does not necessarily mean it's open source, but it means anyone can look at the source and learn. Time Hack is a game I made in just a few hours. Or is it 6 hours? I was on a streak over here. I did this one flying back from, I believe, Germany, maybe after Gamescom or something like that. So I did this flying over the Atlantic, and I landed in Toronto with just an hour or so to spare. I don't remember the timings exactly, but just an hour or so to spare before the end of the competition, and I uploaded it. So that was it. This is a game I made while flying over the Atlantic, crunched over, trying to type on a laptop in those stupid airplane seats. And but I wanted to make sure there was a game, and I did one. So it goes to show anyone can do it. You can do it at any scale. It's fine. Lighter was a sort of first-person, sort of puzzly escape game. Drill 18, the first one that was a huge hit. It is a sort of survival base building kind of game. Sometime after this, the game Fallout Shelter came out, and a lot of people were like, oh, they totally stole... Obviously, they didn't steal that. But it was there's a bit of a vibe there. So it was about digging down to the core of Mars and setting up your little mining area over here. And it did well. I think it came out 6th overall. Yeah, 6th overall. Look at that. Bam. It was very, very, very successful. Yeah, really enjoyed doing that. 99 Luftwaffles was not successful. It was an attempt at sort of a different type of strategy game. A lot of time was spent trying to get some graphics going, and obviously, I mean, some of them are funny, but the amount of time spent developing the graphics was so not worthwhile because they weren't even all that interesting to look at, and the game was not very fun to play, unfortunately. But hey, it was still a game, so there you go. V for Victory, not a lot of love for this one, unfortunately. I feel it's really fun to play. It did have a bit of an issue that it both, so one entire game on one screen was the theme, and this ended up being a little bit of a like a shooter game, almost felt like a shmup in terms of the upgrades you could do, but also tower defense. It was a couple of different things, and yeah, V for Victory was the name of it, Maximum Overkill Edition, to make it look like a very old vector graphic game with the screen glow, and everything was sort of a little bit more polygony, well, except for the circles over there, which wouldn't fit into a vector type game. Fun to play, but yeah, I don't think it got a ton of love. Well, a 40th overall for fun ain't bad. Coolness level, this is some competitions I'm able to do a lot of voting, and sometimes I'm not, and coolness is just a virtue of the voting level. But I mean, if there's that many people sort of competing in it, and we get 40th in fun and 55th overall, hey, I'm pretty good with that. I was always as long as I crack top 100 for fun, that's my entire goal all the time. That's about it, because the game should be fun more than anything else. Ink was interesting. The highlight of Ink is that it has a great little title screen over here. This was sort of the idea with this was to make something inspired by ARPGs like Diablo and Path of Exile and whatnot, and did include full procedural level generation. And it was with this project that I learned that taking the time to make full procedural level generation for a LUDUM Dare game is silly. It doesn't make any sense, because you'll actually spend more time developing your code to make procedurally generated levels than if you just hand-drawn levels yourself. A hand-drawn level will be, well, I mean, not literally drawn, but, a handmade level will be more interesting to play in. And in LUDUM Dare, most people only play a game, once, maybe twice, so having the levels repeat isn't actually a problem. There's no value gained in procedurally generating levels. So in terms of making a good entry for a game jam, this was not a great idea. But we learned a lot of stuff, and it was cool making the algorithm for this, which was really nifty, and it's worth checking out the code for some of that. Some aspects of the visual of this game were really strong. So the idea with this is that I think you're a writer suffering from writer's block or something like that, and you fall asleep and you wake up in a world of like books and pages and things. Some of the graphics for the game turned out really strong. This is all animated. You come here and the book like opens up and the pages flip over and stuff comes out. Like these are sort of like treasure chests or something like that you had to find. You could stab enemies with your pen and they would explode into ink that you could pick up and use your pen over here was both, like, first it was your hit points, but then if you went above that, it became like an ink supply that you could use to do ranged attack to people. And it would lead, like, you could see our little footsteps over here, and if you did an ink spray, I don't know if we've got a picture for it. Yeah, not really of the ink spray, which is too bad. Some of the visuals were strong, some were not. The enemies in particular were very, very weak. I did really like the walls here, these books. We spent a lot of time, we had these little, it was randomized which books would be used, and some of these bookmarks are sort of, sloped like that. So there's some strong visuals and some weak visuals, but I learned a lot about time management. I sort of learned some time management lessons doing 99 Luftwaffles, and then I sort of relearned it with ink, and ink is what really solidified in me how you prioritize certain things in terms of both your content and your visual, because the number one resource in the game jam is time. After ink, we get Hell Wars 18, which is a phenomenally exciting tower defense game based on sins. Yeah, you are the monster was the theme. Well, here is you are one of the lords of hell, and yeah, I guess the ruler of hell has been slain, or actually now, like, it'd be like, oh, Lucifer decided to take a vacation to Los Angeles or something. Anyway, and you're one of the demon lords fighting over control of the souls of the fallen. You've got to collect souls. So souls are constantly spawning in these graphics reminiscent of the old Ghostbusters game for the C64, and going to these various pens where you can store them. But then enemy demon lords are constantly sending bad guys towards you, so you have to build up a series of towers to defend it. One of the big things in this game, which may not be evident here, is there's fantastic amounts of effort made into the user interface for this game. In particular, when you're placing turrets in terms of like, because a lot of turrets, you had like actual turrets that did damage, so the Ascension Cannon, the Soul Shredder, and the Soul Zuka, which is a lot of fun. And then you had booster towers, the boost damage, boost fire rate, and boost range. And there was a lot of effort made to make the user interface for placing these really strong, where you would see the radius of effect. You'd also get live update about the stats. So as you were placing a weapon, you'd know how much damage it did. But as you moved into range of a boost tower of some kind, the stats would change. It would update in real time to show you how effective it would be, which I really thought was quite keen. I was really happy with the work on this, and it's still quite fun. I think if you download and play this, I think you'd have fun. Look at this, 16th overall for fun. Again, I mean, 33rd overall, but fun is always my most important rating. 16th for fun. It's like, yeah, damn right, this was a fun game. Hell yeah. Growth Industries, still one of the ones I'm the happiest with, and still one of the ones I still enjoy playing over and over and over today. Inspired by a lot of board games and things like that. Around this time, I was playing some Suburbia and things, which had sort of a hex tile placement kind of idea. That was part of the inspiration for that. But the idea here, oh yeah, so this is the first time where the theme was tied. Two themes came out with exactly the same votes: 2-button control and growing. Because of the theme, because of the tie, you were able to choose either one of them. I went with growing. The idea, like the game is literally called Growth Industries over here, so you're running a business and things. Really holds up. Great little, again, lots of user interface, trying to make things as good as possible for when you're placing down tiles, make things obvious. A fairly decent and consistent aesthetic, especially when you're in there and you're dragging things around on the surface. I think it's really, really, really strong for that. And really, really fun to play, challenging to play, lots of replayability. The idea is you play until you get audited, and then you get a score of how well you did over there, and you're just trying to see how well you can do. I was really pleased with this, and yeah, overall, super duper happy. Dr. Deckenstein, this is the game that someone else totally copied and turned into Slay the Spire. Okay, no, that's not what happened at all. But basically, they're basically the same game. I put this out and I was like, damn, this is really good. Oh, if only I had like the time and the motivation to turn this into a commercial product. And then sometime later, Slay the Spire came out and I was like, hey, I didn't have to do it. Someone did it for me. That's amazing. But this, if you know what Slay the Spire is, you sort of will get a sense of this. The theme here was Shapeshift. So my game was Dr. Deckenstein, an adventure in severed parts. The idea is you're going through this dungeon, you're killing monsters, and then you're attaching body parts onto yourself by basically you get cards to add to your deck of cards to play. But the theme is, yeah, the idea is that you're sawing them off, the little saw graphic in the background, and adding it to your body, you know, fulfilling the sort of shape-shifting theme, which in, I thought, a clever way. And yeah, I like card games in real life. I like card games on the computer, so had a lot of fun making that one. Wake Up Call is the second game, the only other game other than Fish Tank Commander not made in Unity. This was a pure C# console game. Just pure C#, just a console game, text-based game, a roguelike kind of thing over here. The theme was ancient technology, so we doubled up on that, both in the in-game theme, that you're this incredibly obsolete robot from like 100 years ago, barely holding yourself together, but also ancient technology would be this console-based gameplay over here. Having learned, normally a roguelike, a true roguelike, would have procedurally generated levels. Having learned our lessons from previous games, including Ink, I did not go with procedurally generated levels here. Instead, even though I had, I think, 18 levels in here, it was a lot faster to just hand make the levels. Not only was it faster, but it guaranteed the levels would all be kind of interesting. They wouldn't all feel just samey and generic. And it doesn't really matter, because in LUDUM Dare, a lot of people don't replay some of these games that often. So the value of infinite replayability from RNG, from various levels, there wasn't really any point to making that effort. And instead, we could focus entirely on just gameplay and usability, and it's a very good game. I definitely recommend you give this a download here. Technically, it says it's a Windows-only download. That's not actually accurate. This is a game in C#, so if you have a mono environment set up on Linux and Mac and stuff, you can just run it that way. But you can't run it just out of the box exactly. You have to take a couple extra steps for the other platforms, which is unfortunate, because usually I like to deploy things for different stuff. But yeah, I like the story here. We got to play with a lot of text-based stuff, working around with fonts, trying ways to speed up drawing of things, because it's weird. Like, you know, these days you can throw like a trillion polygons to your graphic card and it runs super fast. You don't even think about it. But it turns out refreshing a screen worth of text is not the fastest thing in the universe, so finding solutions to that was certainly one of our gameplay. Then we get to Kitchen Wizard. This is the final game on the Legacy LUDUM Dare site, and my second time making a pinball game. I still love pinball, so here we go. The theme here was one room, so I decided, okay, one room, it's the kitchen, and we're going to turn that into a pinball game over here. You can see, if you compare the graphics of this one to the original Pinballogy, right over here, you know, a bit of a difference, a bit of an upgrade. I'm still by no means an artiste, but I've gotten better. And the biggest thing I always say is know your limitations, know what you suck at, and then work around that and avoid that. So this is a much stronger pinball game, much better physics, much better visuals, much better sound effects, tons of great gameplay. There's tons of targets to hit. There's all these extra combo modes that you can do. The idea, the overall idea here is to complete the 4 dishes, meatball, super soup, the salt shaker, and meat pie, and then it will enable the super kitchen wizard mode over here. God, that's a good little logo, and that's probably some of the best graphics I've ever done for anything ever in my life over here. There's multi-ball combos, tons of targets to hit, lots of flashing lights all over the place. Yeah, oh yeah, and you could stir the pot. Every time you go up this ramp and go over here, it's like, ooh, you're stirring the pot, and there's like some sort of bonus for that. I don't remember what it is, but yeah, I was quite happy with this game. How did it do? See, only 84 and fun. I was like, come on! I don't think people love pinball as much as I do. For me, #1 in my heart. So that's the classic site, the legacy site. Then we go over to the new LUDUM Dare site, where I have 4 games put over there. And then we get to what is actually probably my best entry of all time, Tub of War. Tub of War came out 6th overall, which is the same as Drill 18, the Mars project, except that there's I don't know, I think maybe 4 times as many people in the competition at this point. You know, this LUDUM Dare 39. I know, whichever one this was. Oh, LUDUM Dare 38. As opposed to LUDUM Dare, I don't know, 26 or whatever the other one was. There's a lot more competition, so this 6th overall is much stronger, and the 7th overall for fun, I think that's my highest fun rating of all time. It is really great. So the theme for this one was, well, I can't remember where they put the themes on the new site. No, seriously. I'm there 38. Oh, A Small World. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, A small world was the theme for Ludum Dare 38, so I made a game entirely in someone's bathtub, like you're a kid in the tub playing with your toys. And what you had to do in this one is you pilot this little tugboat. It floats on the water. It's got cute little physics for that. And you're trying to rescue little, little army men. They're little army men with a little boy around them. You're trying to rescue them and bring them to one end of the tub. Meanwhile, little rubber duckies are coming at you going quack, 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 quack. And little submarines are firing little torpedoes. And you're trying to drag them over there. There's tons of power-up. All these blocks are little power-ups here. That the H one, I think, was for health. You could blow up the sponges and they would give you more power-ups in there. Really, really nice little wonderful game. And by far, like, my strongest ever made. Even though, like, I wouldn't think about it, but it's so simple. It's so simple, but again, the gameplay was so simple, which means we could really put in the effort to the aesthetics. Again, graphically, I'm not a master, but it turns out making sort of plasticky looking toys is well within my area of competence. Right? It's not about area of expertise. It's about area of competence. Work within your area of competence, and then all of a sudden, wonderful things start to happen. And we had, because the core mechanics were fairly simple to program, we could spend a lot of time iterating and polishing the important parts of, sort of the visuals and the core gameplay cycle, and things like that, the gameplay loop. The next few, at that point, that was the last one where, like, I really felt like the energy. Ever since then, I felt my energy levels for Ludum Dare have been not the same. I'm hoping to recapture some of that this time around. We'll see. But next we've got Pipe Trek. And now, visually speaking, Pipe Trek is pretty strong. And it's sort of a pipe dream kind of game. But here's one of the things. One of my favorite things about Star Trek has always been, like, the engineer thing. It's like, oh, we don't have enough power. Oh, I'll reroute the power from the internal, structural support fields to engines temporarily, or this or that, right? I always like that kind of vibe of things. And some of my favorite games that I've ever played have had an element of that. Actually, one of my favorite games of all time, it's an ancient one for the Atari ST, is Sundog, The Frozen Legacy. And it's got some of that. So the idea with this is to capture that. Again, what was the theme for this one? Oh, running out of power. There you go. Running out of power is the theme. So very appropriate here. And so I incorporated this sort of pipe dream-ish kind of mechanic, like this puzzle game. The power comes from the center, and then you've got to get the power to your life support, your shield capacitors, your phaser banks, and over here the impulse engines. I don't know, I didn't put it in the middle. I think just to mix things around a little bit. And you do it by you could swap cubes, and you could rotate them. Or maybe you could only rotate them. That's possible. Maybe you can only rotate them around. And so you had to get them reconnected, and then you had your power levels over here. And the whole time you're in a battle, so there's like text going on over here. Someone's attacking you. I think it's like a Romulan warbird kind of idea. And you're trying to fire back. And depending on things, like if your shields or if your engines are higher, you don't get hit as often. If your shield capacitor being powered is what you use to not take damage. The phaser bank allowed you to destroy your enemy and move up in ranking. And what would happen is every time you killed an enemy, the next enemy that showed up would fire, faster and faster and harder and harder. And every time you got hit, some of your systems would get scrambled around. So you were constantly having to repair things because every time you took damage, you'd have to fix some stuff over here. I'm proud for the L's card user interface, and the gameplay was okay, but let's not it was. I don't know. I couldn't think of. I've always wanted to do something like this. But once I started doing this, I was like, I don't know if it's quite as fun. I'm not sure. Space Shoot? Oh, right. This was just to keep... I had a 19 Ludum Dare in a row streak going on, and I did not stream this one. I just made it in 2 hours. I think it was a multiplayer spaceship combat kind of game. I don't even have a picture loaded over here. That's weird. There's a thumbnail. Oops, hold on. Get back. There we go. It's weird that it's not a picture. Path of Excess. Okay, Path of Excess. And what was the theme on this? Oh, running out of space. Yes, running out of space was the theme. So what I did here... Hey, again, the pictures aren't showing up here. That's weird. That's just the website doing weird things, because there's a picture here. The idea was this It's inspired a little bit by Path of Exile and stuff like that, where it's sort of a spoof on these action RPGs and things where you're killing lots of stuff, but then they drop too many items. So it was about trying to pick up items and fit them in your inventory and do things like that. It was fine. Whatever. It was okay. Scrapitalism. So what was the theme for this one? Your life is currency. Right! So I want to do a classic shmup. Part of the idea with this was to do something that was very good as a tutorial. So we went fairly basic and very tutorial-friendly kind of gameplay. We did a classic shmup, which we'd never done before, so let's do it. Shmup is shoot 'em up. Is I think the contraction of that. So, you know, enemies are coming from one side, you're pew-pewing them and shooting them. We get to have fun with building a few visuals and stuff like that. We made a really cool-looking starfield in the back. But the idea with this one is that when you killed dudes, sometimes it would drop these scrap. You'd pick it up and actually orbit around you as sort of a shield. Well, it sort of looked like a shield, but basically it was your hit points. Every time you would take damage, you would lose some of that scrap on there. And the big thing is you wanted to avoid taking damage because at the end of each level, you could spend the scrap on upgrades. But it was always the thing. If you spend all your money on upgrades, then you don't have as much life because your life is currency. It's the theme. So, you know, you're trying to sort of manage some things that way. So there's this fairly simple upgrade system in there. It's a fairly simple gameplay, but the idea was to do it as tutorially friendly, easy to explain and understand as possible. Hey, look at that. It's still got 24th and fun. That's not too shabby. And yeah, so it brings us to the last game I have made for Ludum Dare. So that was number 44. We are now on to 45, and we don't know what the theme is going to be yet. The theme, as you can see from the countdown timer, as I'm recording this, we're going to be going live. We're going to start programming in under 3 hours. My stream itself, I'll probably start the stream. So this is at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's UTC -4. If you go to the LD Jam site yourself, you can see what your timer is over there. Usually we start the stream at least a half hour before that, so we can, you know, get things ready, have a little chit-chat about the different themes, come up with some ideas. Again, you know, I am quote-unquote making this game on my own, but I'm also quote-unquote using all of Twitch chat to help me with cool ideas for names and gameplay ideas and things like that. So is it solo? Is it a 1,000-person project? You be the judge. The end thing in the end to remember is there's actually no prize for winning Ludum Dare. It is entirely for the fun of it, for the love of it. Some people who come up with a good game do go and make a commercial version of it later and sell it on the internets, and quite a few people have been very successful doing that, including plenty of people who didn't win. But turns out they came up with a really good idea, and when they spent 6 months or a year or something actually making the game for realsies, came out with an extremely successful commercial project. So hope you join me over twitch.tv/Quill18. I'll be live streaming the whole time. I do take breaks for dinner and sleeping. I don't program nonstop for 48 hours because that would only be effective for like the first 10 hours. After that, it would be 38 hours of complete and utter nonsense. So, but do come out, and if you are a programmer at all, participate. It's worth it. Even if you only got a couple hours to spend, make the simplest possible game you can think of, and that's okay. And then if you find a couple more hours, well, then just improve on the simplest possible game you can think of. Folks, I'm going to see you this weekend over on Twitch. Bye-bye.